Hello and welcome again to Meet the Candidates 2020 here on WCMU TV. I'm David Nicholas, and we are speaking with our guest this year virtually, joined this time by Dana Ferguson, the Democratic candidate for Michigan's 1st Congressional District. Congratulations, sir, on the success in the August primary. And in our first minute or two, give us a little bit about you and your background and experience you bring to the campaign.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for having me on today. Yeah, so again, my name is Dana Ferguson. I'm running in the 1st Congressional District, which is the top 32 counties of Michigan, the entire Upper Peninsula, and a big portion of the tip of the mitt. I actually don't come from a political background. I come from a blue-collar work history. I was a union carpenter, union laborer while I was going to school. I did that, take care of my family. I came out of school with my bachelor's in economics. I continued working for my dad's construction company because it was just tough finding work up until around the recession hit when my dad's business went out and I had to kind of start over. So I decided to go back to school. I got my master's in public administration. I continued in the trades. That's when I got into carpentry. And from there, you know, it's really kind of kept me doing that type of work. And what really brought me to where I am today is my concern for the future. And I think coming from a blue collar work history with a solid education, I think I fit well for the 1st District. I understand what the everyday person is going through. I know the struggles and challenges that they face, but I also take a progressive vision for a historically conservative district. And that's not something I shy away from. I talk in a pragmatic fashion about how we should be going forward, thinking about the youth in mind. And I think that's been really resonating with people on the trail.
As you have been on that trail leading up to August and in the days and weeks since, the issues that you as candidate and also those folks that you've been talking about, the prospective voters, talking with, I should say, what are the issues, the key issues that you're identifying to this campaign? What are those key issues?
Yeah, it's really the issues that got me involved in the first place. Briefly touching on them, healthcare, climate change, protecting our environment, and a stable economy, which ties into my educational background. Everywhere I go, healthcare is a just critical issue. It touches all of us across the country. It's not something that just affects a small portion. So we can relate. And then large rural districts like mine, they're particularly interesting and troublesome because of the rural healthcare and how much it relies on the Affordable Care Act. And with the danger of having that overturned or trying to get rid of it, there are so many communities, rural healthcare facilities, and citizens that are at risk. Climate change, this goes to my welcoming of the youth to my campaign. This is an issue that may not affect a lot of us, but it will affect generations down the road. And we're seeing it now, but it's only going to get worse. So I think that as an issue, we need to be addressing it now in a very proactive manner and not so much a reactive. And then as for economy, again, rural districts are hard hit. There are a few communities in my district that are doing well, but there are so many that are lagging behind. And it's tough when you can't get that infrastructure investment that's critical to the foundation that they can build on. So once we address that, we can create those strong, sustainable communities and economies. Don't necessarily have to be large, but they are something that we can attain and have moving forward.
You mentioned the status of healthcare and the Affordable Care Act. What else, in addition, would you do either to strengthen that or introduce new policies to complement that in regards to providing overall better healthcare and securing that for more folks, especially, as you say, in a district that is as rural as yours?
Yeah, I am I'm a supporter of a Medicare for all or universal healthcare system. I think as a country, we should be looking at how are we treating all of our citizens, not just a portion of them. I compare it to education as well as defense. We don't pick and choose who gets an education, and we don't pick and choose who we choose to defend if we are attacked by a foreign foe. I feel the same should be true when it comes to the health and care of our citizens. So my wife, for example, is someone that has had 3 bouts of cancer, and she's been cancer-free now for 10 years. But that's not something she looked for. It's not something she wanted. And if you go out there, you can talk to so many. You don't have so many families. You don't have a problem finding anyone that either has an own personal story or knows of people that have had a tragic incident happen. They're drowning in medical debt, or they're being buried in high prescription drug prices. So I would propose legislation and support legislation that it really address that, so we all as United States citizens get that treatment that we really deserve.
Same question then on the issue of climate change, proposals and or policies that you would look to address that issue.
Yeah, the Green New Deal was proposed, and I think that was a statement-making piece of legislation, and it's really not that scary. What it does is lay out and set goals that we as a country should be reaching. And I do support that. I think we need to take each of those goals and get a plan for those. We have, like I said, we have the goals. We just need the roadmap and the leaders to help us get there. And it's definitely achievable. I think the United States should become a leader on this issue. We should be pushing for green energy, green jobs, modernized green infrastructure, regional energy independence. And these are attainable, but for some reason we've had roadblocks standing in our way. And I feel like maybe it'll just take new representation out there to get some things to actually come to fruition. But, this isn't something, in my opinion, that we can kick down the road any longer.
If we look to your proposals on the economy, potentially, as you were looking to run and then now in the midst of a campaign, we could look at it through the lens of pre-COVID, now, during, and potentially then post-COVID. Economically, what proposals do you feel are needed to strengthen and in many cases restart an economy that has been so much impacted?
Yeah, COVID has changed the game, but it's also, I think, in my opinion, highlighted some of the inequities that we see, especially among rural communities in both the healthcare arena as well as the economy. This is where modernization of infrastructure is so important. If we can get that modernized infrastructure in rural communities that are lagging behind, because in many ways they're being treated as second-class citizens, they will have a better chance to become more sustainable in an event such as the one we're seeing right now. So it is difficult. So in a COVID era, it is really highlighting the faults in the system. And I'm hoping the silver lining of this is we can be learning from it, and we can be taking really proactive steps to address those, whether it's the digital divide or inequity in pay. And I think this is the opportunity that we should be looking at to kind of light the fire under us and get us to move.
Do we look at, in your view, the economy education in the same way, a pre and now during, working towards post-COVID, when it comes to your ideas regarding education and improving that for all?
Absolutely. And I know in Watersmeet, a community in the western end of the Upper Peninsula, that only 20 to 30% have at-home internet service, which in a COVID era, that's totally unacceptable. So that's just one example. That is not a sole case. There are so many others out there. So eliminating this digital divide and letting rural communities get caught up with other parts of the country is so important to not just the education system, but all of the students and educators out there that are trying to get through this. Right now, we're throwing bags on top of them as they try to get through this really difficult time. We should be working to assist them. So again, there could be a silver lining to this, where it allows us to recognize the faults in this system, the education system, so we can correct it and really make progress. Because that youth is our future, and in my opinion, we should not be shortchanging them in this process.
What do we look at in education beyond what has been exposed during COVID regarding that digital divide, the lack of infrastructure and Wi-Fi access for more rural areas and so forth? What else in addition to that, education-wise, do you feel we need to address, and how would you propose we do that?
Well, there's so much. I'm a big proponent on giving teachers a little more power and sway over how they educate. I feel like we've taken the power away from them, and they are the ones that are in charge of educating our future. They play such an important role, and it's so important that they get recognized for that role. So teacher pay, allowing them to have a little freedom in how they educate our youth, to really get them inspired while in the classroom, whether it's in person or virtually. We could be doing more for that. I understand states funding is often plays a part in holding back some communities, and I think as a federal candidate, we should be doing more to make sure that those shortfalls are addressed, so no child or educator is falling behind.
You're running to represent this area in Washington, but you mentioned the state and the local control for the schools. Then how do you bridge potentially some of those gaps in the system, the agreement, the working together, the funding question, to look at some of those issues to, from a federal point of view, bring that back home to the district you hope to represent?
Yeah, I think it's really about communication and being a team player, putting partisan politics aside. I know everyone says that, but really, I'm out there trying to represent a people, not just the people here, but for future generations as well. I think that comes down to setting that example. It's not a secret to say that it's pretty divisive right now. I had a question yesterday at a meet and greet how I would change that. And I think that it really comes down to the people at the top, because that hostility, that environment trickles down into our communities, sometimes into our home life. And that is not what should happen. We should have people in office epitomizing what we expect out of them. We should expect more out of those representing us than we do our children. And we don't always see that. I would be out there trying to act as that adult figure, working with anyone willing to work, and being a partner to those local and state representatives.
In then the less than half minute or so we have with you, sir, then the final message you would want to leave with the voters as they get set to go to the polls.
Yeah, thank you for that. It is so important, and this isn't about Democrat or Republican. This is really about the vision of the future that we have, and my vision of the future is very distinctly different than my opponent's. I include the youth in all of my policies and all of my decisions, and I tell a lot of elderly people that I speak to that even if you disagree with me, I encourage you to talk to your children, talk to your grandchildren, your nieces and nephews, because we should be doing more to shape the future to their liking and not necessarily to ours. We have a responsibility to them, and that's why I'm here.
We've been speaking with Dana Ferguson, the Democratic candidate for Michigan's 1st congressional district seat. Under Michigan law, all qualifying candidates for these offices have been invited to participate in our series. I'm David Nicholas. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you will join us again. And remember to go out and use your right to vote on Tuesday, November 3rd.